Alright guys, so I've got some general guidelines that I use when it comes to modeling our parts, and I've kind of talked about these a little bit in the last video on the features, but I want to talk about a little bit more. So when I'm making a sketch, I like to keep them simple. I like lots of simple things. Simple things are easy to make, they're easy to change. They don't break as easily when you have to make changes to things, so I like to keep it simple. So sketches less than 8 pieces of geometry. Like I showed you, that L shape was 6. I was kind of pushing the limit. I usually try not to go over 6 unless I have to, and usually you don't have to. And so kind of going along this, I usually like to use pre-made shapes if I can. So instead of drawing 4 lines to make a rectangle, I'll use the rectangle command, and maybe I'll use the center rectangle command. So that way it stays centered for me. Or using the slot command or something like that, using a polygon. Something like that that's already multiple pieces of multiple lines, but they're all connected already, so they move together, and I can create it with just a couple clicks. So that's kind of when I'm creating a sketch what I want. Also, make sure you fully constrain your sketch before you add any dimensions to it. So while you're creating your sketches, it gives you the option for putting in the number for how big it is. And you'll see this when we get into it next week. Don't do that. First thing, just draw the shape and then get it lined up right. Use those constraints we talked about last week to tell things to be on the midpoint or vertical from each other, or horizontal, or whatever. Center stuff up. Make sure that it all moves correctly before you start adding in dimensions to it, because once you start adding dimensions, you're starting to lock it down and things won't move, and you won't be able to add in some of those constraints that you want to. So there's that. Also, if you have the option of doing it in a feature versus in a sketch, use the feature. So in sketches you can do patterns. You can also have patterns as features. Sketch one thing, cut it out, do a pattern of the feature. Don't pattern the sketch. The sketch patterns and things are harder to edit than the feature ones. So use the one that's easier to use. So for that reason, I never use, there's a symmetry constraint or relation. I never use it, because if I want that, I'll sketch one side, extrude it, and then I'll mirror that thing to the other side. There's no point to have a big complicated sketch with things symmetric on each side. It adds layers of complexity that you don't need. Also, don't draw a circle and extrude it straight. Use the hole command. That way, if you need to decide you need to change it to a clearance hole or counterbore or something, it's just a couple clicks to make that change for it. Only create things that are related at the same time. Some of the programs like it better if you only create one closed profile. If you have two, sometimes they don't want to work as easy. Some programs work a little easier that way. So kind of a goal is to have one closed profile only, so that way it knows like this is what I'm working on. SolidWorks will also let you do kind of an open line, and it'll let you pick which side to go to cut. But if you can close it out, that makes it easier. It doesn't have to guess what you're doing. So I said, use mirrors and patterns to reuse your things if you need to. It makes it a lot easier on yourself. And use the appropriate end condition. So blind if you know it's a certain distance, but if it's not, if you want to go through all, tell it to go through all. If you want, or tell it to go up to another surface or something like that. So that way, if you change the thickness of the part, that hole's still going to go all the way through. It's not just going to stop where the old thickness was. So keep that in mind as you're kind of figuring out what the features are and how you're going to do things. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.